Hey everybody, welcome to Q Plus EDU 2021. We are super thrilled you're here with us today. Today I am so excited to welcome our guests from the One Love Foundation's Youth Advisory Board. Simone is a rising senior at Sidwell Friends in Washington, D.C. Her interest in One Love started after she left an abusive relationship a few years ago, and now she loves being able to help others and is honored to be part of the One Love Youth Advisory Board. Meg is a recent graduate from Hobart and William Smith Colleges with a BS in biochemistry. During their 2 gap years before medical school, Meg is working as a research assistant at Fenway Health in Boston on HIV risk reduction and prevention studies in LGBTQ plus youth. So we are super thrilled to have y'all here with us today. Thank you so much. I'm super excited to hear on this topic how to ask someone out and handle whatever kind of response you get. So I am going to turn my camera off. I'll turn it over to y'all. I'm here for tech support. If anything comes up, if there's anything in the chat or the Q&A, I'm here and happy to help.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Please give me a moment. And let's see if I can share this properly. Can everyone see this?
Yep, we're good.
Beautiful.
Perfect. All right. Do you want to take it away, Simone?
Sure. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. You heard a brief introduction of us, but my name is Simone Arrington. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a member of the Youth Advisory Board. Meg?
My name is Meg. I use they, them, theirs, and I used to be a Youth Advisory Board member, but since I have since graduated, I am now just a general volunteer, commit some of my time to the One Love Foundation still. So today we'll be talking to young people about rejection and breakups. So generally in a normal setting, we would have you share your name and where you're calling in from today and your favorite current TV show. But since you all are not here today and watching this virtually, answer those questions for yourself, maybe tell your cat or your dog, but we will move on from that immediately. So our goal for today are to learn tips and tools for helping young people handle rejection. So what it looks like to potentially reject someone, and if when someone rejects you, whether that be a romantic partner, a teammate, or someone else, how you can handle that rejection, or other young people can handle that rejection. And then generally understand how to set yourself up for a pre-breakup and post-breakup in the case that you are experiencing some kind of relationship, unhealthy relationship. So we're going to break it down a little bit. First, we'll do an introduction to One Love, and then we'll talk about rejection and what that looks like and some of the really interesting research that's happening around rejection. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to make a pre-breakup plan, and then how to be someone's support system, and just generally at home with One Love, how you can interact with One Love again in the future. So One Love is a national leader in educating young people about healthy relationship health. We were founded a little over 10 years ago in the honor of Yardley Love. Yardley Love was a senior at the University of Virginia back in 2010, I believe. And she was unfortunately murdered by her ex-boyfriend after a breakup. Essentially throughout the trial, the family realized that a lot of the people in her life noticed something was wrong and that something was off, but never really had the language to be able to intervene in a way that was productive or conducive to helping her realize that it was an unhealthy relationship and leave that relationship sooner. So her family did founded the One Love organization to help us educate young people about healthy relationships and give people language so they can describe the behaviors that are taking place in their relationships, whether they be healthy or unhealthy. So generally, the big idea here is that 100% of us are in relationships, whether they be romantic, friendships, teammate relationships, working relationships, or something else. And 100% of us can learn how to love better within those relationships. Just some general statistics for you folks. Generally, 1 in 3 women, 1 in 4 men, and 1 in 2 trans and non-binary people will experience some form of abusive relationship during their lifetime. So this really is a thing that impacts people across the country, across the globe, that is really necessary for us to address. Generally, you can see some more statistics on here for the purposes of this presentation. I'll kind of gloss over them, but generally we've reached over 1.1 million people since the start of One Love through our workshops. We've trained over 24,000 volunteers, and our content online has been reviewed over 1 million times. I'll let you just pause this video and skim the slide for yourself if you're interested in the other impacts that we've had. But generally, you see Simone and I here, both of us having been volunteering with One Love for quite a while now. So the impact is real. So we really center all of our curriculum around the 10 signs, and there are 10 signs of healthy relationships and 10 signs of unhealthy relationships that we would like everyone to walk away from our workshops with. This is not the focus of this particular workshop, but is notable. And if you're curious learning about more of the definitions of these 10 signs, you can find that on joinonelove.org. But to generally quickly run through them, 10 signs of a healthy relationship are comfortable pace, trust, honesty, independence, respect, equality, kindness, fun, healthy conflict, and taking responsibility. While signs of an unhealthy relationship can be intensity, possessiveness, betrayal, isolation, manipulation, sabotage, guilting, volatility, and belittling and deflecting responsibility. It's notable that if you see one behavior once or twice here and there, it might not be an unhealthy abusive relationship, but it's really about the pattern of when you're seeing certain behaviors occur. And that is worth considering when applying these terms to your own life. So now I'm going to pass it over to Simone to start talking a little bit about rejection.
Thank you so much, Meg. That was such a great introduction. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about just some rejection facts, and then we will talk about tips for handling rejection, as well as being able to reject other people yourselves, because likely you will have to do it whether you like it or not. So fMRI studies, I looked this up. I don't remember the F or the M, but resonance imagery studies show that the same areas of the brains respond when we experience rejection as when we experience physical pain. So rejection can hurt a lot. It can hurt as much as stubbing your toe or spraining your ankle. We can relive and re-experience social pain much more vividly than we can physical pain. So when people tell you, I think there's another fact about this later on, but when people tell you they just can't live their rejection down or it's being repeated in their head, I guess just because our brains have a higher capacity to process this kind of pain. Another fact, our brains recall the emotions of being rejected and flood our bodies with the same feelings. This is a big reason why emotional pain can last much longer and be harder to get over. So that again relates to just why emotional pain can really stick with us for longer and be harder to process and to handle. This fact is very interesting. For young people, rejection has high risk correlations with violence, even more so than drugs, poverty, or gang membership. I would like to address this very quickly, though. I think many of the abusive behaviors in our generation among young people have really become romanticized and almost normalized. And so this violence that we're seeing as a result of rejection is not normal, and it should not have this high correlation. So again, as I talked about, we'll learn about some of those tips and some other ways that you can handle and process rejection. But this is a very staggering fact, and it should not be the fact that it is. Asking young people to relive the experience of rejection can cause lower scores on IQ tests, short-term memory, and just a weaker sense of being able to make decisions. So there are different kinds of rejections. Let's go through some of them. First, we have being picked last in gym class. I feel like we see this in the movies all the time when they're picking for kickball teams, and it's always the stereotypical, they pick one kid last, and that definitely counts as a kind of rejection. Not being included in advanced math, reading, or other academic courses. Yep. I think college is on this list somewhere, but same thing goes, being kind of cheated out of a certain program.
And what else is notable about this is there are a lot of studies that are currently going on that indicate that people who are kept out of like advanced math and the segregation of education really does impact people long term, both with trajectory and the actual handling of emotions surrounding schoolwork. So there is questions about how we handle integrating those classrooms as well. So really there's a collaborative environment instead of a rejection-based environment.
Wow, I did not know that. So right here, rejection to a college or university, this one we hear all the time. It can sting. And job search, so rejection with jobs, a step above college or university, so not receiving a follow-up to a resume, losing out on the job to someone else, being told you're not the right fit for the company, or just kind of hearing radio silence, not hearing anything.
As someone who has recently graduated school and just went through the job search process, I can confirm that it's a really difficult thing to navigate and handle, especially when it's not just like, it's like the next phase of your life. So also taking into account those other additional factors of like where you're at in life. It's not just like a small step or something that's happening. It's a big life change as well. So there are compounding factors here.
Yeah, no, I am anticipating the college rejection, so trying not to get ahead of myself there. Being cut from a sports team, being told you're not the right fit for a team, you're not athletic enough, you're not good enough, whatever it might be. Having a romantic relationship end. I find this interesting. This to me sounds like the romantic relationship lasted for a little bit and then there was a breakup instead of a rejection right when it was starting. But those I think are two different kinds of rejections in a romantic relationship setting. Someone rejecting romantic advances. So here's the other one. And familial rejection. This one's interesting, not being accepted into your own family. Sadly, we see this in the LGBTQ community a lot, but it is possibly rejected by your own family, just like your friends, your community, anything that you see on the screen right now. So a little bit more about romantic rejection. Our bodies and brains have the worst responses to romantic rejection. The pain and anguish that is experienced during a breakup activates the same part of the brain associated with motivation, reward, and addiction cravings. This means a breakup can literally mimic the same responses as going through withdrawal.
Yep, it's the same exact brain systems. If anyone is a science nerd, I highly recommend that you look up some of these key terms. You'll find quite a few studies showing that it's the exact same system. It's really fascinating, but definitely has really large implications for how we interact with others in romantic settings.
Yeah, that is just fascinating to me, just the exact same as a withdrawal. Yeah. So now we're going to move into some tips for how to both handle rejection again and how to be able to reject others. So rejection is 100% normal. It happens in, again, all those capacities. You will be cut from sports teams. Sadly, you will be, rejected from schools. You might experience romantic rejections. Whatever the case may be, rejection happens. It does. And it sucks. It really does. But again, it's not some big, oh my gosh, it's just me that this happened to. Again, it is normal and everyone goes through rejection of some sort.
Another really cool thing to look up is there's a professor, I can't remember from what school, but wrote a CV or resume of all of his rejections and failures to show that even those at like the highest level, quote unquote, highest level and caliber of like academic studies experience the exact same types of rejection on a daily basis that other people do, that might not be as like quote unquote prestigious, which is a whole other conversation that we could have.
Don't treat it as a joke. I will talk about a little bit just about the feeling side of this. We did just say that rejection is completely normal. And so from then your brain might be thinking, oh, so then, I shouldn't feel special when it happens. I shouldn't have the capacity. I shouldn't have the ability to feel sad when it happens. But that's not true. Just because it's normal doesn't mean, as the slide said, that it is a joke or that it is something that you can take seriously. You have an absolute right to feel every way you feel about a rejection, whether it is sadness, whether it's that initial anger, whether it's that pain that you feel. And right, again, these feelings shouldn't be suppressed, shouldn't be, oh, haha, I didn't care that much anyways. Normalize it. So in a workshop setting, We can ask who's been rejected before, and it can help if, if I ask that question, I can raise my own hand. It's happened to me. Or talk about the different kinds of rejection. Again, that slide from earlier shows that there is not just romantic rejection, which I think is one of the more common ones for me, except now that I'm in that college mindset, it's either that one or the college rejection. But rejection is not a one size fits all experience. It comes in so many different times, so many different shapes, and so many different sizes. So rejection can absolutely be very big and can feel like your life is ending, or it can be, pretty minor. Like, sorry, we don't have milk today for your coffee. That's a rejection too. You can't have your coffee, we don't have milk. Acknowledge the variety of emotions that a person can experience in the wake of rejection, and respect what they are feeling in the moment. So I don't know how I anticipated this one. But again, feelings are valid. So it's important to recognize them and acknowledge them yourself, what you're feeling. And if you see any friends feeling something in particular, it's important to be there to help them and say, it is okay. It is okay that you're sad. It is okay that you are not okay right now. We are going to work to get you to a point where you are okay, where you are comfortable, where you do realize, like, it happened, but I'm still living. So just some more tips to remember about rejection. Don't take it personally. I think just a little bit, I think in a romantic setting, we can take it very personally, but again, rejection is not one size fits all. So in a college setting, it's probably not personal at all. You are one of, not great to think about, but you are one of many, and it just happens. It's okay to be disappointed. I'm starting to sound a little like a broken record here, but it is absolutely okay to be bummed if you get rejected from something or something doesn't go your way. That's natural. Give yourself time, give yourself resources, lean on your friends, do what you need to do to heal. I think it's in that not healing and that not taking care of yourself properly that then more issues arise. So whatever initial response you have, it's okay. It's where you go from there that could cause problems or that could start to get in the way. Don't continue.
It's not your first thought. I would just like to add, it's not your first thought that matters, it's your second thought that matters.
Yep. So it's how you process that. Don't continue to scroll on social media. Just to be super brief about this one, social media can be super toxic, very bad for your brain. It's, it can be not helpful. If you've just been rejected by Dartmouth and everyone's posting about how they just got into Dartmouth, that can feel pretty crappy. So social media probably is not the best place after a big loss, or even after a small one. So some different ways that people currently respond to rejection. Lashing out, both verbally and physically. We talked about the ties to violence. Guilting someone. So I try to break up with someone, they come back, you're the only one for me. I can't do this without you. I'm going to kill myself without you. That's one that we use all the time in workshops, just very manipulative behaviors towards someone. Trying to prove their love. So again, I try to break up with someone, they say, no, let me prove it to you one more time. Let me prove to you that I'm worthy of your love. Let me prove to you that I can make up for how bad I've been acting lately. Yeah.
Or saying, like, I've changed.
Yep.
And like, when that is not necessarily what the other person wants to hear during the rejection process.
Right. Spreading rumors to isolate someone from friends. Yep. So again, I try to break up. Someone starts spreading rumors about me, and someone says, oh, well, I broke up with them because they did this bad thing. Just not true. Just not true. Attempt to change the narrative of the breakup to other people. Again, don't know how I keep seeing the future on these, but the last two ones can kind of go together. So attempting to say, no, it wasn't me, it was them. Regardless of who it was. If it happened one way, it happened that way. So a few tips on how to reject someone else. This can be hard, and hopefully you won't have to do it, but honestly, there's a really good chance that you might. So trust your gut. If you feel one way about someone, if you're like, things aren't working, I don't know, I'm feeling something that says we might not, whatever, recover from this blow. I might not be happy in this relationship. Like that feeling that you get, I know you all know what I'm talking about. That small feeling that you get that can be overwhelming or sometimes really reserved, so helpful. It really can save your life. Listen to it. Sometimes things just don't work out. It does not have to always be someone's fault. I think it's important to remember that also. We so often look for someone to blame. It can just be circumstances. The time's not right for me. You know, I'm heading into college and I want a little bit of freedom. I want to, you know, I need a little space right now. Things are tense in my life, not because of something you did or I did, just because that's how the world is. You do not owe them a specific reason. You are allowed to say, I don't want to do this anymore, and just leave it at that. You do not, this is so important really in all aspects of life, but you don't owe people anything. You really don't. Make a list. So this can kind of be making a list to cope. Let's see, I can handle this, talk about this a few ways, and Meg, if you have any idea. Make a list, I guess.
So I think that make a list means a couple of things. I think in one aspect, it means if you're considering rejecting someone, make a pro cons list. That could be whether it's like a romantic rejection, or if like you're a hiring manager and looking at an application, or a club leader and looking at someone to take in. Make a list. Like, what are the reasons why they would be a good fit for this role, or versus wouldn't be a good fit for the role, or whatever that means for like the type of rejection that you might be about to impart on someone. This also might mean making a list of reasons why you are going about a rejection process. As the bullet point before says, you don't owe anyone a specific reason about anything. But if you do want to share that with someone, like having a list ready so you're not scrambling in your brain to grasp for things last minute during like a conversation of rejection, that can be really helpful to have that physically on hand with you so you make sure you hit on every point that you would like to. Granted, I would recommend being kind about those things. Because yes, it's a rejection, but like there's a way to kindly reject someone, and to say you're a total jerk, yada, 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 is not necessarily the best way to go about it, but rather saying, oh, here are the reasons why that I don't feel comfortable in this relationship anymore, and why I'm exiting, in a very calm, constructive manner rather than destructive manner. Simone, I'm not sure if you have any other versions of lists that you're thinking of.
Yeah, that was really nice. And as you can tell, I feel like making a list is not very common. You know, I saw the words make a list and nothing really came to my head. But definitely coming up with a list of reasons. In this, Meg, you said for the other person, just noting that you don't owe them a reason, but also for yourself. You know, writing down, why do I want to break up with him? Why is this for me? Let me write down and see how I feel. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. And hold on to this thought, because this will come back for planning breakups.
So avoid using untrue or unnecessary platitudes. It is always better to just be straight up with someone. You know, cut the crap, cut the whatever, you know, cut the lies. That is not going to help with a clean rejection, a clean breakup, a clean ending. Just a straightforward, I'm sorry, I don't want to do this. You really don't even need the I'm sorry. You don't owe them anything. It can just be I'm not in this space right now. I don't want to do this. And again, don't go into the, oh, I'm sorry, but you know, my grandma just died when your grandma didn't die. Use I statements rather than focusing on the other person. If you are ending an unhealthy relationship, you know, it is possible that the other person did show unhealthy behaviors. However, if you are trying to break things off with them, it makes things so much worse. If you're like, I'm breaking up with you because you suck and you're terrible and you only hit me and you degrade me all the time and I can't take it because you're such a bully. Whereas if you say, mentally, I can't handle it and it's getting to be too much for me, then that becomes less of the other person's fault, which again, no one likes to be told something's their fault. And so this can make the breakup a little easier for both of you and just safer for you. As Meg said, be kind. Remember that this is not a one person thing. There are two people involved. And so you might feel one way about it and another person might feel another way about it. But the goal is it really is not to hurt anyone. It's so that you are both the happiest that you can be. And so it is just always best to be kind.
And also be kind to yourself, like going through a breakup process or rejection process, whether that be friendship or something else, is hard on the person doing the rejection as well. And it's okay to be kind with yourself and realize that like there's a reason that you have stepped away. And that's also where making a list comes in really helpful, is if you have that on hand, you can revisit that and say, yeah, like I did make this decision for a reason, and here are the reasons, and be kind to yourself with that.
Yeah, that can also be a good reminder just not to push yourself past anything that you're not feeling. It is not easy to handle a rejection. It is not easy to be the one pushing for the rejection either. And so if you need to take a break, if you're like, this just happened, I need to just sit out for a day, I need to like take a step back from life for a day, it is totally okay to do that. So this little safety tip, we're going to talk about this a little later, but if someone is worried that the person they're rejecting might lash out at them, they can use virtual methods or other safety measures, such as meeting in public or bringing a friend. So yes, one of our safety tips for breaking up, if you are worried about what could happen, is breaking up in public. Just so you're around other people and in a populated area, so that if something were to go wrong, again, you have other people there to help. And the same thing goes for bringing a friend. Sorry, go ahead, Meg.
Gut checks. Gut checks are a blast. Typically what we do with gut checks is we have you all respond to them. But instead, since we don't have, it doesn't look like we have any folks joining us live today, and you all will be joining virtually, I'm going to read the gut check to Simone, and she's going to respond. And then I'm also going to say how I would respond to that gut check. So your best friend, Valerie, has had a crush on Peyton all school year. Valerie finally musters up the courage to ask her out, but she turns her down. What could you say to Valerie?
I would probably first start by commending Valerie for being so brave. It is not easy to go up to a crush that you've had all year, but remind Valerie that it is totally okay. What is this, a high school, is this a middle school? That this was a either middle school or high school crush, and that really, again, it might seem like the end of the world, but it is going to be okay. And right, again, just commend their confidence for asking in the first place.
Yeah, I think that Simone kind of hit on everything that I would generally say, but it's also really important to recognize that more often than not, even if you do end up dating the person you're dating in middle school and high school, and even in early college and late college even, isn't necessarily going to be the person that you're with forever. And that's okay. And it can feel so painful and so horrible in the moment, but that rejection just gets you one step closer to finding the person that you are meant to be with, if that is something that you want for yourself. And that it is, as Simone said, I think just stressing that it's tough and it's hard, and also asking Valerie how she feels and what support that she needs from her friends right now, whether that be talking about it more, not talking about it at all, going to grab ice cream, or making some kind of fun event to mitigate the negative feelings that are coming with that rejection. So now we're going to talk a little bit about breakup planning. So we at One Love think it's really important to have a pre-breakup plan in place before a breakup for a couple of reasons. First, I'm going to talk about what a breakup plan or safety plan looks like. So a breakup plan and a safety plan is essentially a personalized strategy to make sure that everyone in a relationship that is ending is safe throughout the relationship ending and after the relationship has ended. So this is really important because the most dangerous time in an unhealthy and abusive relationship is immediately after the breakup. That is the time frame at which like violence is most likely to occur. Because think about it, if you break up with someone who's unhealthy or demonstrating unhealthy behaviors or acting with abusive behaviors, they're going to be riled up with the fact that you just rejected them. And that's not necessarily a reason to not reject them, but it is a reason to have a plan in place such that you remain safe throughout that time period after, where that other person's emotions are really, really high.
Yeah, super quick. Sorry, just using a real life example. Yardley was murdered 3 weeks after she broke up with her ex-boyfriend, and there were continual attacks on her safety in between those 3 weeks. So this is not us just making stuff up or saying, oh, like we want you to have this One Love guide. it really is the most dangerous time.
So essentially, we here at One Love want to normalize breakup plans for the end of all relationships, whether that be friendships, romantic relationships, familial relationships, because unhealthy tendencies are not just limited to romantic relationships. And it's also important to note that not everyone's going to experience romantic relationships and connections, and that is okay. But just making sure that there is a plan in place for when a relationship, whatever that may be, is coming to a close. So some pre-breakup tips. First, identify your support system. Who are the three, I like to go by rule of three, who are the three people that you can trust and know will have your back no matter what throughout this breakup process and beyond this breakup process? Who are three people that you can trust with your location, potentially with extra finances, if finances are something that you need to consider? Three people that you might be able to go and spend the night on their couch if you need a physical space to stay. Identify those three people ahead of time. Let that support system, at least those three people, again, more is better, but if you're limited to a couple, at least those three, hopefully, let them know that you're ending your relationship ahead of time. When, where, and how, so they know what is happening and they know how to check in with you about your safety throughout that process. And it's important to also be able to trust them with the fact that they won't go and relay that information to the person you're breaking up with. Because if they beat you to the punch, it might not turn out in a positive or healthy manner. Remember that after you break up, regardless of whether or not your relationship was healthy or unhealthy, it's normal to miss your partner. As we talked about earlier, rejection really overlaps with brain systems that are involved with withdrawal and addiction and such, and that's okay. That's how it functions, and that's why we have these strong bonds to our partners. But at first it's going to feel really, really weird because your brain is searching for that partner and is used to having them close by or be able to reach out to, and you might feel kind of like you're in withdrawal from that person, and that is okay and that is normal. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to run back to them, especially if it was an unhealthy relationship. And that is why it's really important, at least in my opinion, to have that list of reasons that you're breaking up or ending that relationship with someone on hand or somewhere visible, whether that be on your phone in your notes app or on a physical piece of paper next to your desk or something else that you can see on a normal basis. Just to remind you that there were reasons that you ended this relationship, and yes, you missed them, and it was unhealthy, and it was time for that relationship to come to a close. Both of those truths can exist at the same time, and that is okay. If you don't feel safe, don't break up in person or break up in a public space where other people are around. There are quite a few options of platforms that you can use nowadays, such as Zoom, your phone, your text messages, a phone call. Of course, if you can offer the person the courtesy of being in person or something that feels right for you, do that if that feels right for you. But at the same time, it is really important to protect your own safety, since this is a very potentially dangerous time. And you can also base that decision off of your partner's past actions. What do you feel like is going to be best for you, both in your safety and also in your mental health process after that breakup?
I would also like to add, if you break up with someone, say over text, because you're worried about the physical harm they might do to you, you probably should not stay in your house if they know where you live, or you should not stay wherever, at the cafe that you're always at with them. These may seem obvious, or these might not seem obvious, but this is when you would then use that support system. Maybe go to your friend's house so they can't find you, because remember, you broke up with them over text for a reason. You broke up with them over the phone for a reason. You don't want them finding you, and you don't want them hurting you. So just thinking about that extra step also, and just remembering to really follow through until the end. You can never be too careful with your safety or with your friend's safety.
Simone's absolutely right. And I think that something else that is really notable about that is think about your location sharing services. There's things like SnapMap, Share My Location. So be really intentional about thinking about, does that person have access to those things? Do they have access to my phone passwords, to my to my social media passwords? Could that give away my location? And if any of those answers are yes, which for many of them they are, change those passwords to get your partner out of those spaces so they can't necessarily go and find you through those platforms. Again, if you do end up breaking up with a person in public or like in person, we recommend that you do that in a public space. If you're concerned about your safety, if you're not concerned about your safety, again, proceed as you see fit. But definitely, if your partner is exhibiting unhealthy tendencies, it is okay to break up with them in a public space to ensure your safety and make sure that other people are around to witness if something does in fact happen, which we really hope that it would not. Again, you can never be too careful. Limit time alone with your partner following the breakup. There's a couple reasons for that. One, again, is safety. Two is it's really easy to fall back into old patterns and habits when you're just like in a setting. Like think about it. If I am put my book on my bed every night before I go to sleep, I'm more likely to read it because it's right there. If that person is right there, then you're more likely to fall into the same patterns and habits with that person since they are immediately right there and at your disposal. So there are some ways that you can limit that time. One is physically limiting that time alone. Two is maybe unfollowing them on social media so you don't see what they're doing. Three is potentially blocking their number if that is something that you want to do, so you're not necessarily receiving random texts from them. So alone can mean a lot of things, whether that be you on your phone, connecting with them that way, or like you two physically together. We're pretty much out of quarantine, but we do still keep these in here because we're still kind of in COVID era. And hopefully Delta holds out and doesn't send us back into quarantine. But just in case it does, we like to have these tips here for you. There may be pressure to break isolation and meet someone after a breakup. Be aware of that and what you feel comfortable with your safety of your physical health. And it also is something to note. I don't think it's on here. A lot of people do end up living together during quarantine that might not necessarily have lived together otherwise for a lot of different reasons. So being aware of that, if quarantine comes again, is it a good time to actually move in with a partner, or is it not? Something else to be like to take in consideration with that is when you move in with someone or are with someone 24/7 and can't physically remove yourself from the space for health reasons, that intensity might pick up really, really quickly. That piece of the relationship might pick up really, really quickly and much more quickly than it naturally would have progressed in other circumstances. And that can be really detrimental to people's mental and emotional health. So protect yourself there as well. Continue to lean on your support systems, whether you're in quarantine or not. Even though like we can be separated physically, there are ways to emotionally connect with one another. This is funny. We kept it in here because I like the little emoji. But ghosting was on a rise when we went to an initial quarantine because like the chaos of everything. And ghosting is a form of rejection. It's a tough one because you don't necessarily know what went wrong. It's just like this person disappeared and fell off the face of the earth and is no longer in your life. So there are ways to go about not ghosting someone, maybe saying, hey, right now it's just not the right time for me, or hey, lovely, like chatting with you over this platform, but I think we'd be better as friends if you do in fact mean that. If not, you can say, I'm just not in the space right now for this friendship or this relationship. And that's an easy way to circumvent that, and hopefully others do the same kindness to you. Now we're going to do a nice little pre-breakup gut check. I'm going to read this again for Simone and we'll see what she has to say. Dan and Lila have been dating for a few months. Dan mentioned that he's thinking about breaking up with Lila because he doesn't feel like they're a match. What could you say to Dan?
So, okay, a few things about this. First of all, this scenario is not super specific. All it says is he doesn't feel like they're a match. First thing I would say, if that means he doesn't feel like they're, ultimate end game, end goals, soulmates, match made in heaven, but they're still very happy, I would say maybe stop and think before you do that, just because he doesn't think they're forever. If he's not the most happy, if he's not feeling the most healthy, if mentally he feels like, maybe Lila's not the one, she's been making me feel a little weird, or right, I just do have stuff going on. He says because he doesn't feel like they're a match. So, right, if it is kind of a behavior or a negative emotion that he's feeling from the relationship, I would say, it's worth digging more into those feelings and thinking, do I really want to end stuff? Do I want to break up with her? Again, is it just the timing of it? Again, is it that superficial, I believe in soulmates and she's not the one, but we're both so happy right now? Kind of digging more into what the doesn't feel like they're a match is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Simone, you hit on something that's really, really important, like the honeymoon phase. A lot of people, like after the first 3 to 6 months of a relationship, when you're used to each other and know a heck of a lot about each other, granted, you still have a lot more to learn. It's not that same initial spark that you're feeling. And that can feel really weird during that transitional phase. And that could be one thing that he's feeling. And in that case, maybe exploring, is it that I'm just feeling comfortable, or that this is now my normal, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But if similarly to what you said, if it's more deep than that, if it's more behavioral, more our morals don't align, our values don't align, then absolutely that is a concern for Dan to dig into, and just reminding him that you're there through that process. And if he wants to talk about it more, totally. But if he just wants some support, if he decides to do that breakup, you're there. And you can help him navigate that breakup as a friend if you're able to. Yeah. Being a part of someone's support system. I think Simone and I are going to split this one up and kind of jump back and forth. I'm going to let you, Simone, take it away first with how to support a young person.
Perfect. So we've been sharing tips throughout this entire presentation, and this is the more how to support maybe someone you don't know super well, maybe your best friend, right, just kind of anyone. So as we said, breakups elicit physical pain. It is important to remember that, to recognize that, and to not hold someone at fault for feeling the physical pain that they do. They're not lying about it. They're not making it up. There is research that shows that, as we showed before, breakups do bring physical pain.
It's okay to recognize that there might not be anything that you can say that will make them feel better. We as humans generally tend to want to help others. Of course, that's not true all the time, but generally speaking, we want to reduce other people's pain, and sometimes we can't. And that can be hard for the person that wants to help. And just recognizing that that's okay. And the fact that they know that you're there is more than enough. In many cases, of course, not all, but in many. And just remind them that they are there, that you are there for them, if they ever think of anything that you can do to support them.
Don't talk negatively about their ex-partner. This is just, if their ex-partner, first of all, did nothing wrong, that's making them unnecessarily look bad. It's also not helping your friend recover at all. Is keeping them stuck on the past. Bringing their ex-partner back up. You're here to help them heal, help them push them to their future. So I'm going to change this to just don't really talk about their ex-partner, try to get them away from that, try to bring them more towards the future, more to processing and moving past it. The negatively though, that just brings the entire mood down, and that becomes a toxic environment, but kind of post-breakup, which can be an unhealthy thing as well.
Right. So you also don't want to push them back into the arms of the person that they had just left. Because if you frame them in the negative light, then they'll be like, no, but remember all these other positive things, and then maybe start to hyperfixate on those positive things. So it's also something to think about.
A good one. I didn't think about that.
Letting them vent is more important than offering advice. Again, as I mentioned earlier, often we are fixers as humans a lot of times, and we want to offer our wisdom and our advice from our own life experiences. But sometimes that's not helpful, because that's not what's people don't necessarily always want to hear what other people think. They just want a space to let out emotions. And it's a really emotionally charged time, whether that be a friendship breakup, cutting off contact with a family member, or something else. It's emotionally charged, and it's okay to just like get it all out there,
Yep.
and be that person to let that person vent too.
Yep. Reduce mental health stigma. This is a big, they should not feel like they're alone in this breakup. They should not feel like there's anything wrong with needing help. They should not feel like, I mean, really, that there's anything wrong with anything they need or anything wrong with what they're feeling. There's just a huge stigma around mental health help now, in general. And so you can only imagine after a breakup, someone's stressed, they're freaking out, they need to calm down, and they feel like they're doing something wrong because of how society shines a light on, oh, you're weak, you need help, you're fragile, oh, you want to cry about it? No, don't do that. Toughen up, go to the gym, sweat it out. So I'm just trying to be there to help them take the weight off, say however you want to process is normal, however you need me is normal. This is not a negative thing, really just get it all out. And reminding them that you are going to be there to help and support them throughout the way, however, whatever they need the most, not whatever you think they need, whatever they need the most.
Right. And then related to that, like thinking about, I was just in a college environment for 4 years, and a lot of ways that some people would handle a breakup and a rejection is like, oh, screw that, I'm just going to go out and party and go wild and go crazy. And that's not necessarily giving yourself room to heal, and reminding your friends that it's okay to take a step back and take a moment. Like, yes, go do something fun, but maybe turning to drugs, alcohol, or something else, like some other destructive behavior, self-destructive behavior, more specifically, isn't necessarily conducive to holding on to mental health during a really difficult time, and potentially offering alternatives of, hey, instead of saying, hey, instead of let's go going and getting trashed, why don't we go get dinner at hibachi and like do something fun, or go mini golfing, or some kind of other alternative that's more conducive to giving space but also distracting if needed.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do is validate feelings. As I mentioned before, letting people vent is important, but following up that venting by, yeah, that's valid, you're right, that sucks, like, I hear you, I've experienced, potentially relating, if that's something that the person wants to hear. Something that I should have said earlier, you can always ask your friend, do you want support or advice? So they can guide that conversation and you can react accordingly. So yeah, that's about it there.
Socializing will be helpful. So sometimes you need space after rejection. Sometimes we all need space in life. It's completely normal, but it can also be a really harrowing and terrifying thing to just be alone with your thoughts. That really can, it can be one of the serious things. And I'm not just talking about with rejection. And so being there, as Meg said, being there to help them, go out and grab dinner with other people, with other friends, or just being there yourself to help them kind of get back into things. And that doesn't mean, push them back into the party scene, push them back into large groups with friends. If they're not up to that, whatever, fine, that's what they need. But still, don't let them fall off the face of the earth and be alone and really just be alone with those thoughts and mope. They will need someone there to talk to.
It's okay to be sad or want to be alone. I think Simone covered that beautifully. It's a really important balance to strike of finding time alone to reflect, but not too much time that it becomes detrimental to your health.
Reestablish a routine outside of their relationship. So I've heard people say, oh, my world is over because my relationship ended. That's not true. We do so many things outside of our relationship. So remind them of that. Remind them, this might have been a really big relationship. You might have had this relationship for 7 years and it ended, and that sucks. But you still go out to dinner with your friends every Wednesday. So keep that going. You still, whatever, you have you have weekly lunch dates with your mom. Keep those. You go to book club every night. You love doing this stuff. And this doesn't rely on a relationship. This doesn't rely on your old partner. So, right, just remind them of the things that they do and that they did do during their relationship that didn't include their relationship.
Absolutely. And I want to strike that this also really holds true when there's a shift in relationship as well. For example, I'll offer my own life as a nice little concrete example. My partner and I just went long distance, and that is a huge change and can feel a little bit like rejection, a little bit different because you're not in that normal like routine that you've been in with that particular person for a while. So it's also okay in that case to like find other routines and other things to do and fill your time, so that you have like a strong mental health to remain connected in your partnership in this new setting. So a lot of these also hold true when it's not just a straight up rejection, but a shift or a change in relationship as well. You may not be the right person right now. Sometimes you're the wrong friend, and that's okay. It's not that you're the wrong, like truly the wrong friend. It's that you serve a particular person, like a particular role in someone's life. For example, with my sister, I am like her go-to, and we talk about all of her relationships in depth, and I offer advice. But when she goes to my mom to talk about relationships, she's really just looking for that validation and support. And she doesn't really talk to my dad about her past relationships much at all. So we all serve a different purpose. And he serves that purpose of like, let's go out and get ice cream, or like, let's go to the golf course, or let's go do X, Y, and Z, that distraction piece. So when she's seeking one of those things, she'll go to one of the right people for what she needs. And you might not be the right person for that particular need that an individual has at that moment. And that's okay. It's not that they think that you're the worst or that they don't value you. It's just you're offering a different purpose than what they need in that particular moment.
Yep. So how to help a friend specifically. I think all those tips apply for friends also, and that's usually how I would use them. But this specific slide is titled How to Help a Friend. So just check in on your friends. This does not have to be necessarily going through a breakup. This is actually just really good just to do. If you see any of your friends are stressed, if you're like, hey, we haven't talked in a while, just be like, how you doing? Or if they have just gone through rejection, being like, how you feeling? Want to go grab something and catch up, want to go, whatever, do you need to talk? But really just leaving it open and allowing them to answer. So how are you doing? How have you been? It sounds super basic, but it really can help.
Focus on behaviors. So not like making judgments about a person's partner. Like he's a terrible person, she's awful, they're the worst. It's like, oh, hey, like that person sometimes like talk to you in a way that I like made me uncomfortable, and I wish that they didn't talk to you that way. So rather than like the characteristics of the person, because that's not necessarily a concrete example of what's happening and is easier to reject as like a statement than something that is like a concrete example and behavior based.
Don't compare relationships for a number of reasons. If I go up to my friend who's in an unhealthy relationship and I go, oh my gosh, you're perfect, you literally look like whatever, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. Everyone talks about how perfect of a couple they are. If I go and compare my friend's unhealthy relationship with Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, I've immediately put them in a box. I've made them think, oh, everything looks good from the outside. Maybe I have just normalized the unhealthy behaviors. Maybe I have just constricted them. Maybe now they don't feel comfortable sharing out to me. Oh, actually, we're not doing so well. Just not a good idea. You also don't know what's happening in the relationship. So again, and all relationships are different. Sorry, that was another thought just came through my head. All relationships are different. So there's no way to be like, oh, you're exactly like this relationship. You all must be running so well in a well-oiled machine. It can just be super constricting and again, suppress someone's feelings or feel like they don't have the voice to share if something is wrong.
Following that up with let them name their feelings. A lot of times, like we might have the language for how someone else is feeling, or we might think that we do, but it's very helpful to let someone come to terms with those things themselves and find the words themselves. So you're not like putting preconceived notions or preconceived thoughts or feelings into their purview. Let them use the words that they see fit at the time they see fit whenever they're ready to.
Don't victimize them or overstate silver linings. So, right, first one, don't victimize them. In if it's not, excuse me, it's not their fault if they've just broken up with someone, and it's not their fault if they've just been broken up with. So this goes both ways. Don't turn it to them. Oh, sorry, I totally just took that the wrong way. Don't victimize them or overstate silver linings. Let me start over. Don't, really don't tell them, oh, you had no responsibility in this. It was completely them on you. You're the one who, whatever, if they got broken up with, you're the one who should have broken up with them. This is on them. There's nothing to blame on you. Don't do that. And also don't overstating silver linings. It can feel just kind of bad to have someone overly sugarcoat something and be like, oh, but this is so good, actually. This is a good thing because now you have all this whatever free time. Or it's one thing to be like, this is good because this can help you grow now. That's one thing. That is in fact a silver lining, but not just bringing up all the, oh, this is so great, even though you're the victim. That was really long and rambly.
That's totally okay. You drove the point home in a really positive way, so you're good. Also remember, it's not your job to fix it. You are a human, you are a friend, you are not a therapist, you are not a licensed professional. Like, seek those things out for yourself. If you're helping a friend, because like if you burn out and are exhausted and don't have the capacity, like that can be tough for you as someone who wants to support someone else. Can be tough for your friend who has been leaning on you. So making sure you're setting boundaries for yourself of how much you can support them. 2, not trying to overstep and fix anything. And 3, finding support for yourself so you can mitigate the really difficult feelings that might come up for you in that support process.
As Meg said, it's okay to set boundaries. Mentally, if you are not up to helping someone heal, that is okay. I always tell people, mentally, if you're not sound, how are you going to go and try to help someone else? That is like a train wreck waiting to happen. I also get the question all the time, oh, well, what if I can like compartmentalize and put my issues aside and then help them and then bring my issues back and then deal with them? That doesn't work. Like that doesn't work. Don't fool yourself thinking that it does. And your friend should absolutely understand, because in the end, you're looking out for them. It is, again, a lot worse to just risk their health and their safety by giving them bad advice, risking actually both of your health. If neither of you are really in a good spot, don't try to like add fuel to the fire. It is okay. They will be able to find another resource, or they might say, okay, I still want you to help me. I still think you're a really good friend. So I'll give you some space, you some time, and then maybe I'll follow up with you later. So they will be okay. But it is really important to prioritize yourself and let them know this is getting to be too much for me. I think you should go see a professional. I think you should go see an adult. I think you should go see someone else, whatever the case may be.
And we will show this list in a little bit, but if that is the case, and you can't pour from an empty cup, feel free to direct them to One Love's website, where we have a wonderful list of national resources about breakups, rejection, unhealthy relationships, such as like Crisis Text Line, Trans Lifeline. There are many that exist. Love is Respect. We'll get to that, but just feel free to direct them there. And if you have a local organization, potentially a domestic violence organization that you know of, maybe direct them there if it was an unhealthy relationship. And I'm sure they'll have a list of more local resources for that person. Surprise, Simone, another gut check for you. All right. This one is if you are in fact an educator leading a One Love workshop. So this might not apply to all of you, but is important for those of you who are joining us as educators. So after your One Love workshop, one of the students comes up and says they're struggling with their most recent breakup. They know the person was doing harmful things, but they still love them. What could you say?
I would tell them it's okay. First, I would thank them for coming to me and for trusting me to talk to them. And then I would tell them it's okay to still love them. it is completely natural. Again, especially if it has been a longer relationship, even if it's just been like a few months, you got to know someone and you connected to them and then they left. And again, whether or not they were doing harmful things, some sort of connection was built, and that connection cannot just be dropped all of a sudden. And I would use some of the things you just talked about. I would say, let's go out to dinner. Let me help you take your mind off things. Let me be here if you need to talk about it. Let me be here, whatever, if you need to cry about it, if you need to like completely ignore the fact that it's happening for one day. And again, just help them however they need, but let them know that it is okay to feel whatever you are feeling.
Bingo. Simone, you are crushing it today. I'll also add, this particular slide doesn't note whether the person is doing harm to themselves or doing harm to the partner. So recognizing that if this student comes and says that their partner's doing harmful things to themselves, then say, hey, here are maybe some support systems for you as someone who has been seeing this happen, and giving them that list, and or giving them a list to provide to that person who is harming themselves, or encouraging them to speak up to a trusted adult, related to, not necessarily blood related to, but has some kind of relationship with the person who's harming themselves, to get them that support that they need. If the harm was happening to them, encouraging them again to speak up to a trusted adult that can support them more closely, offering them the national resources, and if you have local resources on hand, offering them those, and reminding people that when you witness harm, there's this like lovely little thing called Stockholm syndrome, where you bond with the person that is potentially harming you. And it's not necessarily the healthiest thing, and you can still feel that bond despite the fact that something harmful is happening. But prioritizing safety is number one importance. So with that, here are 4 of our many national resources. These are just our favorite here at One Love, just because they are really accessible with 24/7 care for the most part. There are many other phenomenal national resources that are available on our website, and there are many local resources. Oftentimes, if you just look up your zip code with like domestic violence or support, or suicide support, or mental health support, many resource lists will pre-populate into Google. So explore that if that's something that you need. If after you watch this, you need support, feel free to also reach out to these resources, because hearing things that we talk about like this can be really difficult to hear if you've experienced violence in the past yourself. So be sure to take care of yourself today after watching this little presentation, and reach out to people who could support you if you need that.
One thing I will add, sorry, about the resources, all of these resources are open and accepting of everyone. This is one of the most common things that I talk about in my workshops. Many different groups have a history with different common resources. All of these resources are here for you regardless of how you identify, sexuality, race, religion, socioeconomic background, whatever it may be. These places are here for you. They will not judge you, and they are trained to handle mental health crises, and there's a description under all of them, so it's different for each organization, but they are trained and they will help you regardless of who you are.
Yep, amazing. And I'll also add one more that's not on here, Trans Lifeline. It is a trans-run organization supporting other trans folk. Right now, they are on a little pause as of August 2020 to September. Wow, no, we're in 2021. So into September 2021, but they will be back and better than ever very soon. So if you're watching this at a later date, that's another great resource to check out. We're going to skip this slide. These are not the most recent dates. This PowerPoint is a little bit of out of date, but we do have a lot of awesome At Home with One Love resources, both built for students and for educators, and like general individuals. So keep an eye out for those. You can visit that link at the bottom of this PowerPoint to see what the most up-to-date times and options are. But we also have a bunch of different options of like workshops and ways to engage with One Love, such as volunteering, teaching, starting a team One Love at your high school or college, and much, much more if you just go to joinonelove.org. So please use that resource if you're interested in getting to know us a little bit more. And here is our lovely little email. Normally we would ask if you had any questions, and unfortunately none of you are here to ask questions, but I'm sure you might have some when you're sitting at home in whatever room that you're in, or maybe a coffee shop if you're feeling a little spicy. So you can email those questions to info@joinonelove.org, and someone that is most appropriate for your question will get back to you. I'm going to just say the team at One Love is like amazing, and super responsive. And if you have ideas for like workshops or things that we don't do currently, I can speak for myself. I've made workshops myself specifically for One Love, not this one, but some other ones that are more LGBTQ plus focused. So if you have like ideas that are super receptive to that, our goal is just to reach as many young people as humanly possible and reduce relationship violence and unhealthy relationships. So if you're interested, there it is. And I'd like to thank you all on behalf of One Love. And Simone, if you have any closing remarks, please feel free to share them.
Yeah, thank you all for taking the past, hour, a little over an hour to be here with us, to learn about rejections, to learn about healthy and unhealthy relationships. These skills are life-saving. This is not me over-exaggerating. This is not me being like, good job, kid, you just saved a life. You will use these, you will need these. These really are life-saving. And so we do thank you from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of Meg's heart, from the bottom of the general One Love heart. We thank you for sitting through this, for willingly being here. Right, please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. And we hope you'll continue to learn more about One Love, continue to learn more about how you can help friends, and just greater relationship health.
Thanks all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, y'all. We are so grateful for you. I'm so thrilled to hear this amazing wisdom coming from y'all, because I was in my late 20s when I learned a lot of these things. And so it's really comforting to know that the younger folks are like learning these super necessary things so at like such a much younger age. And I'm super grateful, because I also know that the students I work with are much more likely to listen to y'all. So thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. We're super grateful. We hope you'll join us for other Q+ EDU sessions later this week. Tomorrow we've got Centering QT BIPOC in your GSA. We have a special session on Saturday, learning from African LGBTQIA+ leaders. And then next week we've got a chat with non-binary elders, sex ed Q&A, how to bring Pride Week to your school district. And we close out Friday of next week with a conversation on advocating for the LGBTQIA2+ community with elected officials. So we would love to have you all join us for any or all of those. Thank you so much for being here with us. We super, super appreciate your brilliance and wisdom and time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good one, y'all.
Thanks, you too.